Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. In a large downtown car dealership, the atmosphere is electric. Salespeople are busy, customers are chatting, and in the middle of it all, an elegant and authoritarian woman rules the roost, Madame Leroy, the manager. Known for her arrogance and contempt for those she deems unworthy of her cars, she cannot stand having the image of her establishment tarnished. That morning, David, a simply dressed black man, pushed open the door of the dealership. He calmly observed the models on display, without disturbing anyone. Yet, within seconds, all eyes were on him. A salesman approaches, hesitant, but before he can even say a word, Mrs. Leroy intervenes. She steps forward, looks him up and down, and says in a curt tone, "Sir, I think you've come to the wrong place. The used cars are on the other side of the street." David remained silent, a slight smile playing at the corners of his lips. He tried to explain that he simply wanted to inquire about a specific model, but the manager, annoyed, cut him off. "I won't repeat myself, sir. We serve a serious clientele here, not curious onlookers." In front of the stunned customers, she called security to have him removed. David, humiliated but calm, left without a word. A few minutes later, a phone call disrupts the dealership. The owner is arriving for a surprise visit. And when the door opens again, it is David who enters, this time accompanied by his lawyer and the board of directors. Madame Leroy's face froze. She has just made the mistake of her career, evicting the true owner of the car dealership. That day, the lesson she would receive would remain etched in everyone's memory. The midday sun beats down on the gleaming windows of the Leroy Motors dealership, one of the most prestigious in the city. Inside, everything exudes luxury, state-of-the-art cars, salesmen in suits, and a manager who is always on high alert. Madame Leroy, perched on her stiletto heels, observes the exhibition hall like a general overseeing her army. Nothing escapes her notice. At the same moment, the door opens discreetly. A man enters. Tall, calm, dressed in a dark polo shirt and clean but unbranded jeans. His name is David Morrell. He slowly walks around the cars, stopping in front of a luxury sedan, his eyes full of admiration. A salesman, Thomas, approaches timidly. "Thomas, hello sir, can I help you find a model?" David, smiling, "Yes, I'd like to know a little more about this one. I've heard it's very efficient." Before Thomas could reply, Madame Leroy's icy voice echoed through the room. "Mrs. Leroy, Thomas. Never mind, I'll take care of it." She advances with a brisk step, her gaze gliding over David with a mixture of mistrust and disdain. "Ms. Leroy, sir, I'm afraid this car is not within your price range. Our models here cost more than a year's average salary." David, calmly, "Oh, I see. But I'm ready to pay cash if I like her." Mrs. Leroy, laughing nervously, "Pay in cash?" "Of course. And I am the President of the Republic." She casts a mocking glance at her vendors, some of them snicker shyly. David remains calm. He looks at the car one last time, then at the director. "David, you know, madam, appearances can be deceiving." But Madame Leroy refuses to listen. "Mrs. Leroy, coldly I ask you to leave the premises, sir. I don't want to have to call security." Tension rises. The customers fall silent, uncomfortable. David sighs softly, takes out his phone, and looks at the screen for a moment. "David, very well. I'm going to leave, but I'll be back very soon." He turns on his heel and leaves the dealership under the embarrassed stares of the staff. A few minutes later, in her office, Mrs. Leroy was laughing again with a colleague. "Mrs. Leroy, honestly, did you see his face? He really thought he could buy a car here." But her laughter stops abruptly when her phone rings. An unknown number. She picks up the phone. Voice on the phone, "Hello, Ms. Leroy. This is the owner of the Morrell Motors Group. I'll be paying a surprise visit today. Get your team ready." Her smile disappears. She stands up abruptly. Mrs. Leroy, yes, of course, Mr. Morel. We will be ready. She hangs up, unaware that the man she has just humiliated is none other than David Morel himself, the owner of the group. 2 hours later, the dealership is in turmoil. The employees are running around in all directions preparing for the surprise visit of the big boss. Ms. Leroy, nervous but proud, adjusts her jacket in front of the mirror in her office. Madame Leroy, to herself, now is the time to prove that I run this dealership with an iron fist. He'll see that here, everything is under control. She goes down into the main room, inspects each car, each file on the desks. No one should make a mistake. Suddenly, the front door slowly opens. A silence falls in the room. All the employees turn towards the entrance. And David appears. Dressed this time in a sober but elegant suit, he advances with a confident step, followed by a man in a suit and tie carrying a briefcase, his lawyer, Maître Dupuis. Madame Leroy frowned in disbelief. Mrs. Leroy, whispering, "No, it's not possible, it's him." She steps forward, forcing a smile. Mrs. Leroy, "Sir, I believe we've met before, haven't we? You're coming back, for a visit?" David, smiling calmly, "Yes, madam. A visit, exactly. And I hope you are ready." She laughed nervously. Mrs. Leroy, "Oh, I see. Perhaps you're with the owner we're expecting? Do you know him?" David, fixing his gaze, "Let's just say I know him rather well." All the employees exchanged confused glances. David turns to the salesman Thomas, the one who had tried to help him earlier. "David, thank you again for your welcome earlier, Thomas. You are one of the few here who have shown respect." Thomas, embarrassed but smiling, lowers his head. Madame Leroy, meanwhile, is beginning to feel sweat beading on her forehead. Mrs. Leroy, "Wait. You're not." David slowly pulls a badge from his jacket, bearing the logo of the automotive group. "David, I am David Morel, founder and owner of the Morel Motors Group, of which this dealership is a part." A leaden silence fell over the room. The employees are frozen. Madame Leroy turned as pale as a sheet. Mrs. Leroy, stammering, "I didn't know. Mr. Morel, I apologize, David, coldly, "You didn't need to know, madam. That's precisely the purpose of my visit, to see how my clients are treated when no one knows who I am." She tries to justify herself. Mrs. Leroy, "It was a misunderstanding. I simply thought." David, interrupting, "You thought I was less worthy of buying a car here because of my appearance. Is that right?" The vendors avoid his gaze. No one dares to speak. David takes a deep breath, then adds, "David, you humiliated me in front of your employees and customers. But don't worry, your lesson is only just beginning." He turns to his lawyer. "David, Mr. Dupuis, convene the Regional Management Council. We will settle this matter immediately." Madame Leroy, pale as a ghost, understands that she has just sealed her own fate. A few hours later, the Leroy Motors conference room is full. The main executives of the automotive group gathered around the large oval table. In the center, David Morel, impassive. Opposite him, Madame Leroy, her face closed, tried to hide her panic behind a tight smile. Chairman of the board, "Very well, Mr. Morel, you requested this emergency meeting. Can you explain what happened?" David gets up slowly. His gaze sweeps around the room, then settles on the director. "David, this morning, I walked into this dealership like any other customer. No driver, no appointment, no suit. I simply wanted to see how my employees treat their customers. And what I saw deeply disappointed me." He takes out his phone and puts a video on the table. A surveillance camera shows the scene from the morning. Madame Leroy ordered security to escort David out, under the embarrassed gaze of the customers. A murmur ripples through the room. Madame Leroy's face turned crimson. "David, that's how you treat a man in my dealership?" That's how you humiliate someone without even speaking to them. And this is not the first time I have received complaints about the behavior of this management. Madame Leroy suddenly sat up, her eyes shining with anger and shame. Ms. Leroy, that's false. I have always defended the company's interests. I worked hard to make this dealership a model of success. David, calmly, by humiliating customers? By judging people on their appearance? Is that your model? She lowers her eyes, unable to answer. David, turning to the board, a company is worthless if it forgets respect, dignity, and equality. Skin color, clothing, or bank account don't matter. What counts is the human being. A heavy silence falls. Then the chairman of the council spoke. Chairman of the board, Ms. Leroy, your financial results are good, but your behavior is unacceptable for the reputation of the group. At the owner's request, your position is suspended with immediate effect. Madame Leroy turned pale. She tries one last time to speak. Mrs. Leroy, Mr. Morel. I beg you, give me a second chance. David, coldly, you judged me in a second. Today, I return the favor. She lowers her head, defeated. 2 internal service agents escort her towards the exit, under the silent gazes of the employees. When the door closes, David turns to Thomas, the young salesman. David, you have shown integrity and respect. That's all I expect from my employees. From today, you are the new manager of this dealership. Thomas, in shock, remains speechless. Thomas, sir. I don't know what to say. David, smiling, just say, thank you, and remember, always treat people the way you would like to be treated. A few days have passed since Madame Leroy's fall. The Leroy Motors dealership, now managed by Thomas, is breathing a completely different air. The employees are more relaxed, the customers are better received, and a large sign has been hung at the entrance. Here, everyone deserves respect. That morning, David Morel discreetly returned to the dealership. Not in costume this time, but simply, as during his first visit. No one recognizes him right away. He enters, observes the vendors speaking kindly to a working couple, offering a coffee to an elderly customer. With a smile on his face, he knows that change has begun. Thomas notices this and immediately steps forward. Thomas, Mr. Morel. What a surprise. David, I just wanted to see how things went. And I have to say, I'm proud. Thomas humbly lowers his head. Thomas, you were the one who set the example for me, sir. David, smiling, no, Thomas. Life teaches us, when we know how to listen. They stop in front of the same car that had started the whole story. David placed his hand on the hood, lost in thought. David, you know, it's not wealth that defines a man, nor his color, nor his clothes. These are his values. And sometimes, you have to be despised to remind the world what true respect is. Thomas nods, moved. The employees around listen in silence. David concluded quietly. David, as long as I own this company, no one here will be judged for what they appear to be, but for what they truly are. A human being. He smiled, greeted the team, then left the dealership without another word. But this time, everyone looks at him with admiration, not because he is rich, but because he has proven that dignity and justice are worth far more than any luxury car. Light bulb moral of the story. Respect is not measured by color, wealth, or social standing. He gives of himself, quite simply, because the greatness of a human being is seen in the way he treats others.